Alrighty, we should be live and ready to go. So today, I think we're on episode 140.
Wow.
What would be 3 years? 156 would be 3 years. Coming up on it.
Yes.
About 14 more, 16 more. All right. So today we're going to be talking about: are you actually eating healthy, or are you really eating healthy? One of the most common things that we hear when we're sitting down with people or chatting with clients and members is, I eat pretty good, but I'm not losing the weight I want to lose. Or I eat pretty healthy, I don't know why I'm not, achieving the goals that I'm hoping to achieve. And so the first thing that was kind of a realization to me, even today, like you had this realization, is like, we tend to get into these routines and habits and daily things that we do on a consistent basis, and you kind of don't even think about them. And so you only really focus on the things that are different or new or highlights. Think back to different memories that you've had. You always remember like the good times, and you don't necessarily remember any of the bad stuff that went with it. I'll start off by telling a little story, a study that I read in a book I was reading. And they were interviewing these parents that went to Cedar Point. Maybe it was Disneyland, I can't remember. But they basically checked in with them at periods throughout the day, and they said, on a scale of 1 to 10, like, how's your day going? And obviously, when you're at one of those places, there's really long lines, it's chaos, there's kids running everywhere, there's food everywhere. So most of the time, they were checking in, it was like a 3 out of 10, 4 out of 10, 5 out of 10. They're waiting in line. It's super hot out. They're sweating. They're uncomfortable. They're surrounded by people. And then once they're on the ride, it's like, hey, how's the ride? Scale of 1 to 10. Oh, 10 out of 10, exceptional. So when you averaged out all the different ratings and you looked at it, it was like a 6 out of 10 experience based off the averages. But then they asked the parents that didn't do the interview during the day, but like 6 months down the road, they said, hey, how was your experience at Cedar Point? Rate it from 1 to 10. And they all put like a 9 or a 10 out of 10. And it's because they had forgotten about all the chaos and the heat and the lines, and they were just thinking about how amazing those rides were. So I think our brains, we tend to just forget about the things that we don't want to focus on. We only focus on the good. So when we think about people that are looking to become healthier, nutrition-wise, starting to work out, things like that, you only remember that salad that you got instead of, a burger. You only remember that walk you went on, and not, sitting there and watching 3 hours of Netflix. You only remember and focus on the good stuff that you're doing, and you completely neglect and forget about all your old bad habits. So, a great example is like when we sit down with people, we'll say, like, hey, how's your nutrition? How do you eat? And a lot of people say, I eat pretty good. And then we'll say, what did you have yesterday? And we couldn't tell you how many people would say, oh, yesterday was a bad day. Maybe I'll give you another day. And a lot of people do that. And that's kind of the reality is a lot of those days are those bad days. You're only remembering the day that you had the salad, you had the protein, you went for the walk and got your workout in, but you're kind of neglecting all the other days. And so what we want to do is really break down and figure out how can we actually decipher and figure out, am I actually eating healthy? If so, how often? And then we'll kind of steer you in a direction to help get you on a path to where you're going to move in the right direction and achieve the goals. So.
Yeah, I do think that is something that we tend to gloss over time. We tend to forget about any of the negatives and just remember the positives of certain experiences from the past. In the current day-to-day, you could probably pick out okay, that's probably not good, this probably isn't good, but if you look back over a week or a month, you do remember most of just the positive things and forget about the bad. And like you said, it's kind of just like a built-in habit, so you don't even notice that it's happening, which we've talked about before. It's just kind of automatic, and you don't even think to remember oh yeah, I did have 5 sodas yesterday, and okay, that's an extra 1,000 calories that goes unaccounted for, but you're only eating maybe 12,000 calories of food. So it's okay, there's obviously something that's not lining up here. And so becoming more aware, I think, is really huge for people, more mindful of that.
Yeah.
I mean, we can even parallel that to, say, high school or college or something. And people, they look back on college and they're like, oh my God, it was the best time of my life, which is kind of sad if you think about it, because that's 4 years of your whole life. And, you know, or high school, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, this is going to be the best years of your life or something. And it's like, do you remember high school? Everybody was awkward and like nobody, like it was just, you know, people are remembering all these like great times and they don't remember any of the negative stuff from that time too, like the trauma, what mattered back then and what you used to stress about. And like you look back on it now and you're like, why did I even care about that? I'm like, nobody cares what my GPA is, you know, out of high school, or unless you go to college or whatever. And it's like, a lot of the stuff that used to matter don't matter anymore. And like, you get these like rose-colored glasses when you're looking back. And so trying to uncover that by like just becoming more aware of what you're actually doing and like taking more of like a scientific approach to it of like, okay, well, let's investigate this. Because obviously this looks really good on the surface. It's kind of like an Instagram account. Like, you know, everybody posts the highlights and like makes their life look so glamorous. Like you see the vacation photos, you see the perfectly posed photos, and like everything looks, I was like, oh my gosh, that looks like you have an amazing life. But then, you know, you see their day to day and it's like, oh, this, you know, maybe it's not so sunshine and rainbows every day. And it translates into pretty much everything else.
Yeah, and I think like a really big problem is people not understanding like what healthy eating is. Like a lot of times, like, I mean, the reason we brought this topic up was because I said I was having a conversation with a girl yesterday she was getting frustrated with her coworker because her coworker was frustrated that she couldn't lose weight even though she was eating healthy. And her definition of healthy was that, oh, she's making her own homemade bagels and eating those for breakfast or whatever. Not that you can't eat bagels, like not saying that, but if that's the only thing that you're eating, that's still not a well-balanced meal to be eating for breakfast. And then, you know, she's still going out and getting Dairy Queen for lunches and stuff like that, but maybe she's trying to choose a healthier option at Dairy Queen, but still, that's overall, if that's what you're doing majority of the time, that's not healthy eating. But a lot of people just don't understand that, and a lot of people fall for the food labels at the grocery store that say it's high in protein or it's this or that, but it's still like this processed junk that is not good for you. So I think obviously like knowledge is power, and yeah, doing your research, learning like what food actually does for your body, what foods to stay away from, what foods to eat more of, is just super important, which takes time to learn. Like we said, we are still like learning every day. Like how, I mean, Bethany's a nutrition genius, so she probably knows
I wouldn't
all
say
the
that,
things.
but all right.
But Taylor and I are like, you know, we're still learning like about nutrition and what's good for you and what's not great for you. And are eggs good for you or are eggs bad for you? Do they increase your cholesterol or not? Which we figured out they don't. Eggs are great for you, but there's just so many things out there that the world tells you.
Yeah, that's the thing.
That's not necessarily true, and it's like marketing scams, just
Yes.
constantly thrown in your face.
Yeah, so you can't just read the labels. You've got to look on the back of the box, you know. One of my clients told me this, is the more you know, the more you realize you don't know.
Yeah.
So the best thing you could do is just go out there and try to learn as much as you can about this stuff. But understand that you have to keep an open mind, and you can't just trust the labels. Like, you know, if you're seeing a label on chicken that says gluten-free, that doesn't make sense, for one. So if you believe it's healthier, you're falling into this scam. You know, and a good example of that is like Cheerios. You know, right on the front of the box, they got a nice little heart, and it says helps lower cholesterol, and it's literally a box of carbohydrates, which turn into sugar. A box of sugar is not going to help lower your cholesterol. It's only going to make it worse. So you can't trust the labeling. Honestly, thinking about what you had just said, one of the best things you can do is just flip it over and read the ingredients. And I like to say, kind of my rule is like, okay, if it's got more than 10 ingredients, I'm going to try to stay away from it. Or if it's got multiple ingredients that I can't pronounce. You know, that's just proving to me that it's highly processed. It's got preservatives. You know, things like color dyes, like cereals, things like that. It's got a lot of ingredients that are just terrible for our bodies, and so you can't just trust the label or the box. You know, they do it with things like wraps. You know, everybody thinks like, oh, I had a chicken wrap, you know, today. I was super, super healthy, and a lot of the wraps are filled with preservatives, and you know, they're highly processed, and they put in the label like, oh, high in fiber, gluten free, you know, and they might be better option than, you know, eating a bagel or regular white bread, but they're still not necessarily super healthy. There's always better options. So it's like, okay, on what level am I eating healthy? And you know, most people would say that we're probably extremely healthy eaters. I would say that I'm a subpar eater. I try to make my eating as convenient and fast as possible because that's just how I like to do things, so that I can get you know, stick to my schedule every day. I mean, I eat pretty good for the most part, but it could definitely be better. And I feel like there's a lot of people out there like, oh, I'm eating so good, but what they don't realize is compared to who? Compared to what? Compared to the average American, maybe you're eating a little bit better, but like compared to what actual healthy eating looks like, you're like a 2 out of 10. Get real with yourself, you know? So, but seriously, like, you know, I'm over here maybe, if I compared myself to as healthy as I can imagine somebody eating, I'm maybe a 5 out of 10 or a 6 out of 10. Like, you know, I still eat a lot of RX bars and a lot of processed foods. You know, I'm not eating 100% whole foods cooked in my own kitchen. You know, I'm ordering foods from a service that, you know, it's a good option, but it's not a 10 out of 10 option. You know, things like that. So that's just how my mind is working around it. But I would say to start with, you know, make sure you're not just reading the labels and saying, oh, what is it telling me on the front of this? Gluten-free, keto-friendly, you know, low in sugar, all that kind of stuff. Start to learn how to read those labels. And the other thing that we kind of figured was you're never going to know if you're eating healthy or not until you actually write down and track everything for an entire week. And we can get into your story on that here in a minute too. But
Yeah, one thing I want to touch with the nutrition labels is like, obviously, yeah, okay, that's one good thing to tell. If it comes in a box or a package, it's definitely processed, more processed than the natural kind. Like, even say like, you know, the ready rice we use, like the microwavable Ben's ready rice. You know, even though it's like, you know, you can get the whole grain version, still a really good option. Like, is it the absolute best? No, it's like, there's all these like levels to it. And it's like, okay, what level are you at right now, and then how do you move up on the ladder? Because yeah, someone right now, they might think they're eating healthier by getting the salad at Applebee's when I was dinner at Applebee's the other weekend. And I was looking up the calories, because I was like, you know, trying to keep mindful of that too. And I was like, what's got a lot of protein and like not a ton of calories, but still something that I want to eat. And so I'm like looking through the whole menu, and the salads, all of the salads were over 1,000 calories. Even like the grilled chicken Caesar salad was over 1,000 calories. I'm like, there's lettuce, dressing, cheese, chicken, croutons. I'm like, it's all in the dressing or something. I'm like, I don't know where they're getting all these calories from, but it's a lot in there. And so like, you're better off going, like, I didn't even have a vegetable. I had 2 like of the wonton tacos, which ended up being 300 calories for the appetizer, and then my actual meal was like 600. And so I still ate less than the whole salad. Well, people would be like, okay, obviously I didn't get any vegetables in that, but I ate vegetables earlier in the day. So that meal probably would have been like, if you were to rate it on a scale of 1 to 10, health-wise, like maybe a 5 or a 6 or something, because there's a lot of added fats and stuff like that to it. But like, it's really comes down to just being more conscious of like your labels, what's actually in it. Like, is there actually high protein in this? Like, a lot of protein bars, they'll say, oh, good source of protein or protein bar, but it's actually more just like a candy bar with protein added to it, because it has so many calories and not a lot of protein. And so, is it better than eating a straight up candy bar? Yes, because you do get at least some protein, but it's still really easy to overeat, because you can eat a ton of them and it doesn't fill out your stomach very much. You're not getting the benefits of the whole foods from, like, if you ate, you know, that protein from chicken breast. And, you know, being mindful of those kinds of things, just reading the labels, becoming aware of that part. And then like on the gluten-free type things, and there's a lot of messaging out there from the media where it's like, oh, vegetables are bad for you because they produce a defense toxin when we cut them because it's part of the plant, and then like they're not good for you because your body's going to react to it or whatever. And it's like, okay, if you find me someone who eats a ton of vegetables in a generally healthy diet, they're going to be healthier than somebody who doesn't. And like, you know, you find somebody who's, oh, I just eat meat or whatever. It's just that negative marketing that's out there, that negative messaging out there. If somebody's really like, this is the answer to your problems, or like, this is why you can't lose weight, BS right there.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's a big thing, is people need to be able to sort for themselves, because nobody knows what, you know, it could sound really good. Like, I could go into a hardware store, and I'd be like, hey, I'm looking for a drill. And they'll be like, oh, you gotta get like this brand, like it's got this, this, and this much power. And I'm like, yeah, sounds great. I was like, I don't know how much power is in a normal hand drill. Like, I'll pay extra for that. Sounds great, right? It's got all these attachments, and you're like, oh, cool. Like, I guess I could use that. But it's that same thing is like in the diet world or diet industry, fitness industry, they'll be like, oh, well, this diet, like, it's gonna rev up your metabolism, and you know, it's, you know, turns sugars into something else in your body, and you know, all this different stuff. And you're like, oh my gosh, that sounds really good. But if you don't have that underlying basis of knowledge of nutrition, you can't sort out the BS from what's actually right. And so if they're making all these claims, or they're like, bananas are bad for you, and here's why, or like, these are 9 foods you need to stop eating, or that are slowly killing you, or what, and it's like, that's a bunch of BS out there. So it's like, stay away from that stuff. If they're making all these wild claims, how do you know if someone's good? Is if somebody asks them a question and they say it depends. And then they give you like, well, it depends on this, depends on that. So just as a baseline for all of those people out there that, you know, maybe you don't know where to turn to for nutrition advice outside of us, I guess, or if you hear something on the internet, like, if they're making all these wild, outlandish claims, like, probably BS.
Yeah, so my little story with nutrition, I want to say it probably started like in pregnancy, like the very first trimester, having all these aversions to foods and vegetables and just not being able to eat a lot of that stuff. And then, I don't even know, I guess just like, I feel like when you're pregnant, people cut you a lot of slack, like, oh yeah, you can eat that because you're pregnant, you're eating for 2 type of thing, which I knew was like not true, but I think I still kind of like clung to that a little bit because, I don't know, it just is our society, I guess. So anyways, fast forward, I gained like 40 pounds in pregnancy, which is a lot. And then postpartum, those first few months, I was like, I just like could not lose weight. And I was like, I'm back at the gym, like I'm working out. And again, here I am, and I'm a personal trainer, I've done nutrition courses, like I know these things. And here I am, the one saying, I think I'm eating healthy, like I think I'm eating fine. And then I finally was like, okay, like obviously like I'm doing something wrong because I can't lose this weight no matter what I do. So I tracked my food for 2 weeks and realized like, oh, I am overeating, and I'm eating, it was probably fats were the worst thing. And like I told them, like I was just like snacking a lot more than I did before I was pregnant, because I got in that habit while I was pregnant and postpartum and just grabbing quick snacks because I was too lazy or just had a baby to deal with, and kind of making excuses to like not meal prep and not eat my vegetables still as much as I knew that I needed to. And so literally, well, it was like a couple months of me like just eating better. I didn't keep tracking my food, but I just like added in more vegetables, and I stopped snacking as much, and I dropped over 10 pounds in like, it was like a couple months.
What's your body fat
And
percentage
my body
gone since
fat,
that?
my body fat started at about 30% and got down to about 23 in a couple months, which
7%.
is, and it's not even like I've been under eating or anything like that, and I haven't been working any harder at my workouts or in the gym. It just strictly was eating better quality foods, I'll say too, like cutting out a lot of those snacks, and maybe like instead of having I don't know, like some chips or something for a snack. I'm having an apple with some almond butter or something that's like a whole food instead of a processed food. And then like just listening to my body and like if I'm full, like stopping eating instead of thinking I have to eat everything that's just because it's on my plate, which is another huge thing
Yeah.
in our society because growing up we were raised if you don't eat everything on your plate, you're not having dessert or you're not leaving this table.
Yeah.
And that has like tricked a lot of people's, this is totally going off on a tangent, but that's tricked a lot of people's minds into
Yeah.
thinking like I have to eat this whole entire serving of whatever I got from this restaurant. No, you don't. You can take it home.
I'm like, well, I gotta get my money's worth.
Yes, yeah, or don't waste food, but in the long run that's only been hurting us. So
Yep.
anyways, yeah, I tracked my food and was able to drop weight, drop body fat, keep my muscle mass, which has been really cool. So just like, and yeah, like I said, like I knew all these things. Like I've been doing this for a while now, but I still got just caught up in life and kind of, I don't know, just kind of forgot, I guess, for a little bit. So
Or it just became a habit long enough
Yeah.
where you didn't even realize.
Yeah.
Like what I think
Yeah.
most people probably do on a
Yeah.
daily basis.
Yeah.
Especially parents. If
Yeah.
they've got 1, 2, 3, 4
Mhm.
kids, like they probably mindlessly snack, or
Yeah.
maybe their kid doesn't finish all their meal, maybe they're eating some of that. They're
Yeah.
not accounting for that kind of stuff.
Right. Yeah. That's true.
Let alone
Yeah.
drinks too. Drinks get overlooked a lot as well. Like you even mentioned, like it might not even be pop drinkers. Like
Yeah.
there's a lot of people out there that don't even add up their pop, but then it could be coffee drinkers. Like if you're adding a couple tablespoons of sugar plus some creamer to it, and you have a couple of those every day, that might be an extra 200 to 400 calories that
Yeah.
you're not accounting for right there.
Mhm.
So it all adds up, and
Yeah.
until you track everything that you put in your body for like a week or two and analyze it, you're never going to know whether or not you're eating enough
Yeah.
or too much. You might realize you're eating way too much sugar or not enough protein. So you really do have to sit down and analyze and track it.
Mhm.
But-
Right, and like you can do super duper well from first 6 days of the week, and then that last day, you can blow your whole like the deficit that you created during the week. So you worked so hard for 6 days, and then you blow it on the 7th day, and just you go out and binge drink and binge eat on pizza or whatever, and you just like erase all the hard work and progress that you made during the week, and like I think that really hurts people a lot too.
Yeah.
Or in the times where like maybe they are really good at maintaining their weight in general, but then it's the months that they take off because they're going on vacation, and then it takes them a while to get back into a routine, or it's the holidays and they just like for 6 weeks they're constantly they're gaining weight, eating lots of food, and it's just like a cycle that slowly adds to it.
Yeah.
And so yeah, biggest thing would be just tracking what you're eating, becoming more aware and conscious of what you're actually doing, what's actually healthy. Like, I think you can find it on Precision Nutrition where they have, okay, this is like your green foods where this is where you want to make 80% of your diet, and it's all, whole grain. So it's going to be not whole grain cereal, but actual full whole grains. So it would be your brown rice, your quinoa, your sweet potatoes, regular potatoes. It'd be lean meats, all that kind of stuff. And then there's like the yellow range, which is like, all right, have this some of the time. It doesn't mean that it's unhealthy. It's just you don't want this to make up the bulk of your diet. And I think a lot of people see the yellow as like the really healthy foods, as like
Yeah. If you look at that list, most people would think that those are the healthy foods.
yeah.
Sure.
And it's like you don't want this to be the cornerstone of your diet. Like it's okay to have them in there. White rice would be in there, or of course that's kind of demonized now, anyways. But different things like that, where it's like, okay, this is still not as healthy as it should be. And then there's like the red, which is not like, okay, stay away from this forever. It's just this is the foods that are really easy to overeat. Like think your fast foods, your cake, your cookies, your chips, things that are very easy to overeat. I think even fruit juice is in that category too, possibly. And so even though it's healthier, fruit juice,
It's
like,
just as bad as pop. Just think about it that way.
yeah, of like the amount of sugar that goes into it. But yeah, it's like maybe find that Precision Nutrition. Maybe we could link it or something to the post.
Throw it in there.
But that's like, okay, this is in our heads, we see that as the barometer, whereas most people see the middle column or stuff that's labeled healthy or what some guru online said is healthy, and they see that and they compare that as their standard. And so like making a new standard for like what healthy looks like, but then obviously making it fit your lifestyle too.
Yeah. I think another thing is too, like when you start eating healthy, like I noticed this for myself, like when I was trying to eat better, you know, when I was like, okay, I realize I'm overeating in these snacks and these things, and so I know I need to eat better. Those first, first month was probably the hardest because, you know, you do get in this habit of eating these foods, and then you're like, oh, I have to cut these foods out, like whatever. But as soon as I did my body scan and I saw that body fat go down and my weight go down, after that, I was like, I don't even want those foods anymore because I made progress, and I was like, I don't want to go back to what I was, and I know that if I eat those foods all the time, again, it's not saying I never eat those foods, that's unhealthy too, but I'm not going to eat them as much as I was because I don't want to go back to that. So it's like you almost like stop craving things once you make progress and you see that progress, or you see like your before and after pictures. So it's almost like just really having a lot of discipline that first little bit to like stay away from those things, and then it gets a little bit easier as you kind of make progress and you just don't even want it anymore.
Yeah, that and your taste buds, your palate
Yes,
changes
that's
too.
true.
So like if you cut, I hate the word like cutting out stuff,
Yeah.
but you were more conscious about what you were eating, and so you naturally wean away from some of those snacks. Like those snacks, as we've discovered, is like they're designed to make you want to eat more. So if you do have some sugar, you're gonna want more sugar. your brain's gonna send you that signal. So if you wean away from that and you start eating better, your taste buds change. All of a sudden, blueberries and apples and oranges and bananas, they taste amazing, and you get that nice hit of dopamine. Like these are my sweet foods. And I couldn't tell you how many people I've had that like stopped drinking pop, that all of a sudden a couple months down the road, oh, I went out to eat and I got pop and it was terrible because their taste buds completely changed. And it only takes about a week. People don't realize how fast you can adjust. You know, so maybe there's a food that you don't like right now that's healthy. Try it out for a week, and if you still hate it, don't eat it. But maybe you adjust and you actually end up not minding it. Same thing with foods that you really love. Like, go without it for a week, and your taste buds are going to change, and you might enjoy some other foods. You know, going back on what you were talking about, like the deficit ruining your day on a weekend. I just did a little quick math. Like, let's say somebody needs 1,800 calories, and they want to be in a little deficit. So maybe they're eating 1,500, 300 calorie deficit. That's 1,800 calories over 6 days. And then they go out and they completely blow their Sunday or Saturday or whatever day it is, and they have double the calories. They just ruin their entire deficit in one day.
Yeah.
And most of the time for a lot of people, it's probably worse than that. It's probably more like 2 days, like Saturday and Sunday, or Friday and Saturday. And so then instead of an 1,800 calorie deficit, they're in an 1,800 calorie surplus. So people should don't worry too much on like, oh man, I was 100 calories over today, or oh, I was 200 calories over today. Total up your week.
Yeah.
As long as you're in a deficit throughout the week, you're gonna be okay. So whatever your calorie recommendation is, which you can also use a calculator on Precision Nutrition, or you can ask us, we can figure it out for you. But Gen Pop females probably 1,800 calories, 1,800 calories is kind of like a good amount to hit based off, depending on your activity levels, things like that.
Yeah, I
If
mean,
you're
that's
super
good.
active, could be up to 2,000. Yeah, obviously it depends on your body weight, all this kind of stuff. For an example of 1,800, let's say, but
On average, yeah. We'll just
Yeah.
take an average. Like a range between like 1,500 to 2,000 even would be a deficit for, you know, if someone's a little bit bigger, then they're going to have, you know, more wiggle room with their calories. And then if they have more muscle and everything like that, they'll burn a little bit more, so they get to eat a little bit more and lose weight.
yeah. So just take that number. If you figure it out, multiply it by 7. Here's my allowance for the week. And that doesn't mean starve yourself
Right.
And
for
then go
3
ham on
days and then go
weekends.
ham on weekends. But try to stay as consistent as possible and end the week in a deficit. And we usually give a window of like probably 300 calories, or like it's 150, 200 calories either way. So it's like,
Yeah.
hey, your goal is 1,800 calories. So if you hit 16 to 2,000, that's good. Like you don't beat yourself up if you're like a couple hundred over, you know. Maybe just add a walk in. It's as simple as that. It's kind of like energy in, energy out. So that's just one calculation that I wanted to point out. But just to kind of get people to wrap their head around, it's breaking down your entire week of how you're eating, not just focusing on the day and being receptive over the day.
Yeah. And just for like an example for people to reference, like if you had, say, 4 mixed drinks and 2 pieces of pizza, that'd be 1,800 calories. So you have 4 rum and cokes and you have 2 pieces of pizza, which you think like, okay, I had like my one meal that's like free meal. And that's your
That's if you didn't have anything else the whole day.
That's if you didn't have anything
It's
else.
the only thing you ate that day.
Yeah, so it's like be very mindful of what you're doing, and the weekends, like make the weekends really count. Like I feel like if people can stay on track on the weekends, and keep that similar to what they do during the week, then they'll do much better.
Yeah, I would say like you can't have a whole cheat day. You can, but I would steer away from a whole cheat day. I would just cheat meal. Like if you go to dinner, have whatever you want.
Well, with that example, that's a cheat meal. Like if they
Yeah,
have their 4
right.
drinks and,
Mhm.
or maybe it's an
That's true.
appetizer. That's one meal, and so it's having those foods, but in a way that's still balanced. So
Yeah.
maybe it's 1 slice of pizza and a salad
Right.
with not a bunch of extra dressing on it, and you have a Diet Coke and 1 rum, something like that.
Yeah.
And so it's like still enjoying those foods and like having a little bit of it, but in very moderate amounts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
One thing I want to do is the stoplight. I love the stoplight idea, like the green foods, yellow foods, red foods. So we mentioned earlier, like most people probably think like those yellow category foods are like the really healthy foods, whereas like the green category, think of like single ingredient whole foods, like a potato, an apple, broccoli. It doesn't even need a label because it's just a singular food. So what would you say for a recommendation on maybe the average audience? Like, what percentage of foods throughout the week should be from the green category, the yellow category, and the red category? I kind of have a thought, but I wanted to get your guys' thought first, and we'll kind of compare and see. Like, what would move them in a very good direction if they could do this?
I mean,
I'd
I've-
say like 60 to
60
70 for the green.
yeah, and then
I'm thinking like that's
Probably.
doable.
like 30% from the yellow, and then like 5 to 10% from the red. I would say.
So like 60, 30, 10?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's like a doable one.
Yeah.
It's not as
It's gonna be a lot better than what the average person would be doing.
Yep. And I was even gonna say 50, 30, 20 for people that have no nutrition
Yeah, I think it depends on
knowledge
the
at all. Like
situation.
as far as
Yeah.
I'm not doing any kind of nutrition at all. I don't track what I eat. To start out, if you can eat 50% of your foods, just more whole foods, like healthy,
Yeah,
the
that's a
green,
huge difference.
and then, because think about 80-20, 20% from the red, 80% from green and yellow, like 50 green, 30% yellow, 20%. You're going to be pretty good, moving in the right direction. And then obviously, hopefully, I think at some point, a really good goal would be like closer to that 60 to 70% green. Maybe it's 20 to 30% of the yellow, and then only 5 to 10% of the red.
Yeah.
Would be like an end goal to
Yeah.
get to.
Yeah. And like what you can do just to see that is if you write out, you don't even have to track on, MyFitnessPal or anything
Yeah.
like that. Just write down what you eat and then highlight. Like look at the list and then see, okay, I had, maybe it was the white rice. Okay, well, that would be yellow food. So then you highlight yellow and then see how many of your foods
Yep.
over the week is like, okay, it's green, yellow, oh, there's a red here, and like look at your color objectively, because in our heads it's always better than we think. But if you put it out on paper and you can be more objective about it, and like if someone else were to come in, what would they see? Like
Right.
just like an observer, right?
So that reminds me, we have a great 7-day tracking sheet from Jen Broxterman. It's got your entire week on there. It's got breakfast, lunch, dinner, plus snacks. And I'll include a link to it along with the stoplight from Precision Nutrition. So then you've got your stoplight foods for your proteins, your carbs, your fats. It's got all your vegetables on there. And then I'll include the 7-day tracking sheet. And it's Monday through Sunday. and you literally write what you had for breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks every day of the week, and then you put that color with the highlighter on there. So you can reference your stoplight sheets, write out your whole week, and then you'll have a visual with all these colors on it. And then you can count out, okay, let's say I have 3 meals a day, 7 meals a week, that's 21 meals. Are 10 of them green? That's kind of the goal, 10 or 11. Maybe 5 to 6 would be yellow, and then maybe the last 3 or 4, or 2 to 4 would be red, right? If it looks like that, you're going to be moving in the right direction. But you might realize, oh my God, 3 of the foods that I've eaten or meals are green. 15 are yellow, and then 5 are, or whatever is red. So it's like you need that visual to kind of hit you right in the face to see, okay, am I actually eating healthy or am I not? So we'll include both of those, and then send us a picture of it. We would love to see it. I'm actually super curious. It's something that we do with people that are first starting out with us. Track every single thing you eat for a whole week, put on there, green, yellow, or red, and we're going to see how you're eating before we give you that nutrition advice moving forward. So hopefully this helps. You guys have any final thoughts? Cool. So try that out. Start just trying to do your own research on nutrition. I think a really good way to do it without having to know a ton is just to look at the labels, and if it's got 40 ingredients or more than 10 honestly, and then a bunch of stuff that you can't pronounce, it's not going to be the best option for you. Those are the foods that you'd want to limit a little bit more of. So shop the perimeter, get your whole foods, and then maybe just a small percentage of it's going to be your processed, your boxed foods. The more you can just do that, the better off you're going to be. It's not so much like, how much fat do I need, how much carbs, it's, if you can just eat more whole foods, you're not going to overeat. Like what you said, it's like, okay, if I'm eating more clean foods, you can't overeat on potatoes. You can't overeat on broccoli. Like
People will try.
Yeah, and actually a good visual. I just shared this video yesterday or the day before, and it was really cool because it had a comparison of 1,400 calories, and it had like a Chick-fil-A meal. It had a pop, like I don't know if it's fries or something, and then like the chicken sandwich. And that's a chicken sandwich. Yeah, it's a clear example of, I'm eating pretty good. I got a chicken sandwich from Chick-fil-A with a freaking huge 30-ounce pop, sauce, and fries, 1,400 calories. And then on the other side, it had 4 meals prepped that were also 1,400 calories. And that also ties into people don't want to eat healthy because it's expensive. But your food goes a lot farther when it's whole food. So if you're spending more on your food, you're going to get more bang for your buck. You're going to be able to eat more without, just indulging on a ton of calories.
Yeah.
You can eat 4 meals and have an equivalent to maybe 1, even though it costs more, you're getting more meals.
Yeah. You can buy a big bag of rice for really cheap, or a big 50-pound sack of potatoes for
It's
really
really not
cheap.
as expensive as people think it is, because it goes a lot farther. It's like you're buying in bulk instead of just buying this, 1 meal or snack. So,
Yep.
all right. Hopefully this helps you guys. We'll see you in the next episode. Stay healthy.